So yeah, we'll go ahead and start with ingestion of fats. So first, we have beautiful marker. Thank you so much. All right. First, we have ingestion of fats. And we have an enzyme here that is called lingual lipase. Lingual means tongue, or lingua means tongue, I should say. And lipase means enzyme that breaks up lipids. Lip for lipid, ase for enzyme. And this guy, he is going to cut off the third fatty acid. So he cuts off this guy. Okay? Okay. And then that fatty acid is just free floating. And that's all salivary or lingual lipase does. It doesn't even catch all of them. It's just sort of a, let's start moving as best we can.
Is that a phosphate that's in that third spot?
Yeah.
And if so...
Oh, and it's, sorry, that's my habit. There isn't a phosphate because it's a triglyceride. There aren't phosphates in those. I just have drawn the other two guys so much that it's automatic. All right, good catch. All right, so that's lingual lipase. That's the mouth. Next, we're going to come down to the stomach, where we are going to have our next enzyme that is in the stomach, especially in younger folk, but everybody, especially young folk, gastric lipase. So you see we have two lipases so far. And this gastric lipase is going to do the exact same thing because the salivary lipase is not going to have time to catch everything. Now, question for you guys. Why don't we, I mean, we have saliva throughout the day. We swallow it. It goes down to our stomach. We should have a huge pool of lingual lipase in our stomach. Why might that not be what we depend on? What could make an enzyme stop working in the stomach? Acid. This one is not good in acid. It breaks. That's why we have this guy, because he is built in such a way that he works really well at a low pH. Okay. So that's the difference between these two guys is, besides where they're made, is this guy likes pH of roughly 6, whereas this guy likes a pH of roughly 3. So the other way you can think about this is if you had acid in your mouth, it would burn. Therefore, you know that the mouth has a higher pH than the stomach. I mean, I don't even think you need to. Everyone knows there's acid in the stomach and not in the mouth. So there we go. All right. So those are the two, like, kind of precursor guys. Oh, last thing to say about gastric lipase. The exact cell that secretes it is called the chief cell, and it's just one of the many cells that makes up the border of the stomach, and there's more than one of them. And I'm just going to stick a feather here because
it's a chief.
Chief. So chief cell. Okay. All right. So we've got some prep going so far. We have a third preparatory sort of thing going on here. And that's going to be, we got the fat, we started breaking it down, but it's still all grouped together, and it's really, really hard for enzymes to get into globs of fat, because the globs are only going to be meeting the water, where all the enzymes are floating on the very outside, and that makes it very time-consuming to get the entire glob of fat. So we need to emulsify it, we need to spread it out. And that is where we're going to have bile salts. So we have the gallbladder, which has bile salts. Question for you guys. So the gallbladder stores bile. Where is bile made?
The liver.
The liver. Excellent. Okay, so liver stores it into the gallbladder, and then the gallbladder will go ahead and release it into the duodenum. So this is after the stomach, after the pyloric sphincter, technically. So the bile salts will come and they will emulsify or spread out all of the fat. And so the enzymes are able to reach it much faster because the surface area is vastly increased. Okay, so we're just going to gall bladder bile salts equal emulsification. All right, last thing about the gallbladder. There is a hormone that tells the gallbladder to squeeze and release, and that hormone is CCK. Do we know what CCK is? Yes, excellent. Cholecystokinin. So cholecystokinin, I'm going to go ahead and write that one in blue because it's a hormone. Chole, meaning gallbladder. Excuse me, chole meaning bile. Cysto, meaning sac. A cyst is a sac. Kinin, who cares what that means because we have the other two. I don't know. All right, cholecystokinin or CCK. Okay, so CCK. And that is what is going to tell the gallbladder to squeeze. So that's one of our hormones that you will want to remember because that's something that she will probably ask a question on if she asks it in this area. Next, we're going to go ahead and, so that was preparation. Start cutting some stuff off, then get it ready for the heavy hitter enzymes to be able to access it by emulsifying it. Now that it's emulsified, now that it's in the duodenum, and it's partially digested off of the third site, we are going to go ahead and pull in the reliable green marker with the pancreas, which technically is behind the stomach, so I'll just go ahead and draw. There's our pancreas. Technically, whatever. So, and there's going to be, it's going to join right here, and it's going to put other things into pancreas. It's going to put other things into the duodenum. These things are going to be categorized as some enzymes, and then some pH stuff. Okay? So the enzymes. And actually, first I'll say what hormone activates the pancreas. Anyone got that one? That's an enzyme that's in it. Good. There's a hormone that tells the pancreas to put that enzyme out. Secretin. Excellent. And insulin is made by the pancreas, so that's good. But different pathway, same organ. All right, so secretin. It makes the pancreas secrete things. Not all scientists are sadistic. All right. Enzymes, we've already got one. That's pancreatic lipase. All right. Now, the previous two lipases that we had, they only did the third fatty acid. This guy is the heavy hitter. So he's going to go ahead and here's the glycerol backbone. He cuts the first and the third. So if there are any third ones left still, this will take care of the rest. And then it also takes care of all the first ones that it can. The second one will stay there. And so we call this a 2-monoacylglycerol. So the 2 means that the second spot still has something. The mono means there's only one thing attached because we took off the other 2. So there's only one fatty acid left. Acylglycerol. Glycerol is the sugar on the backbone. Acyl is a particular chemical
So you're
group.
saying when the pancreatic lipase breaks this down, it breaks it down into 2-monoacylglycerol?
Exactly. And then the fatty acids that it cuts off just go free floating into the rest of the duodenum. So it just snips them off, little scissors. All right, so pancreatic lipase makes the tag into a MAG, monoacylglycerol. So if you ever see MAG or DAG, it's just talking about, these would be DAGs, and then if it has all 3, then it's a tag.
Okay.
Good? All right. Other enzyme type things is right here. For pancreatic lipase to work, we have to have something called lipase. Sort of like cofactor, like it's a helper. It doesn't actually do anything, but it is required for pancreatic lipase to do really well. Co-lipase basically has a portion that can be happy with fat and a portion that's happy with the pancreatic lipase, and so it brings them close together so that it can work more efficiently. Okay? So co-lipase, I actually think I remember some people saying that she asked a question on that one at one point too. So co-lipase.
Is there any other name for it?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
All right. So the rest of the enzymes, I did not see her naming them at this time, so I'm not going to do that. I will name one really important one that I just feel like she has to have mentioned. Trypsin. Yes, no?
I don't remember that.
I remember trypsin, but I don't know if it was in our lecture.
Okay, well, I will just say what I usually say, which is panzymes. Pancreatic enzymes. That is not a real word, except now it is. That's because I'm really lazy and don't like saying pancreatic enzymes because that's 5 syllables and it's too much. So, panzymes. It releases a whole bunch of other stuff. One of them is also trypsin. She didn't go into details. Just know that there are a bunch of other things being released. They're for digestion of various things. The pancreas is the digestive organ of choice. All right. And then we next have where we've got, pH. pH modifying. So does anyone know what one of the major pH modifiers of the blood, we're not in the blood right now, but one of the major pH buffers of the blood is?
Calcium?
Bicarb. Calcium does, I feel like calcium is in there somewhere. Bicarb is the one we're looking for this, because that's what the pancreas does release. So it's going to release bicarb, which is CO3. And so bicarb is going to get the pH from way too freaking acidic to alkaline, because you would burn your intestines if you did not release bicarb. Okay? All right, any questions so far?
What did you just say? Bicarb brings the pH down? I mean, up.
If I said down, I meant up.
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Yeah, that darn negative log that the P gives you. All right. So, all right, let's go ahead and do some active recall then to make sure this sticks, because understanding is great. Remembering is really useful for the test. So, the way that I would remember it is there are 3 things in prep phase. Lingual lipase, gastric lipase. Take a second to say, okay, the 2 lipases, what do they do? They both do the same thing. Where do they come from? One's from the mouth, one's from the chief cells of the stomach. Great, we're done with those, basically, I think. Yeah. Then I would say, all right, what's the 3rd preparation thing? Gallbladder. Gallbladder has bile. What is it activated by? What does bile do? It is activated by CCK. It emulsifies fat. Okay? Done with prep. Part 2, the star, pancreas. Pancreas is activated by what hormone? And then it has enzymes and pH action. So I just basically say prep, then the next organ. So let's go ahead and just do prep, and then we'll just do the pancreas after. So go ahead, active recall. What are our 3 steps of prep? It might help if you try to see the board in your mind as you do this. Bringing it back in about 10. So, any trouble spots? Any questions come up?
The chief cells.
Chief cells.
I just saw chief, but I don't remember the significance of chief.
Okay, for sure. So chief cells are the guys that are going to make and release gastric lipase.
Okay.
So that's where that enzyme comes from. If we didn't have them, we wouldn't have gastric lipase. So, just one of the special cells of the stomach. There's like a half dozen of them. All right.
Is emulsification still prep?
Yeah, emulsification is what I consider prep because you aren't doing the full digestion, like breaking it apart yet.
Okay.
It's just getting it ready.
Getting it ready to be prepped.
Everything's getting it ready for the pancreas.
And then the gallbladder makes and creates CCK, correct?
It receives CCK as the hormone that says, yo, get to work.
And it
So-
secretes bile salts.
Hmm?
Which is, and it secretes the bile salts, which are the emulsifiers.
Exactly.
Says, hey.
Is all this
Release
happening in the
bile
small
salts.
intestine?
Sorry?
Is all this happening in the small intestine?
So all of the...
Well, but not the.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the duodenum is
Is
where
part.
all of that is released, and then it continues to happen throughout the entire small intestine.
Okay.
By the large intestine, it should be done. So it should be like the first half of the small intestine, jejunum and part of the ileum. So, good question, by the way. All right, and then the other thing, I realized I didn't say it when I was doing my thing, pH. But that's one that you can reason out. It's like, what pH should it be at? Why doesn't the salivary work in stomach? All right, next. Pancreas, we're actually doing the digestion now. It's got its hormone, and then it's got its two things, enzyme stuffs, pH stuffs. So the enzyme stuffs is the lipase and its buddy. Matter of fact, honestly, those two should just be like, whoop. And then other panzymes, just in case she mentioned it or something. And then pH is bicarb. So we'll take like 15-20 seconds to go ahead and try and review what is the organ, what is the hormone, what are the two categories of stuffs. So go ahead and active recall. We want to keep it. Bringing it back in about 5. All right.
And then the 2-monosylglycerol, it breaks into 2 from a tag, or it just breaks into 2?
So this was a tag or a DAG, depending. So this was either the partially digested, that's a DAG, right? Because it's only got 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or there are still some tags because these guys don't catch everybody.
And it just breaks it into 2 monos, correct?
It breaks it into 1 mono because you only have 1 backbone, and then 2 free fatty acids that we just aren't naming. So the name is for this part. So you get 1 mono because you took it from a tri to a di to a mono. And then the placement of the fatty acid, this is another thing that I would go ahead and, if I was doing a test question, I would probably ask that. What spot is left? It's like the fatty acid is left on the second spot. And so then you just have a mag with the fatty acid on the second spot.
Mag's middle finger.
Exactly. So, all right. One question for you that I did not say directly. What pH do you think the pancreatic lipase likes, roughly? High, low, or middle?
Middle.
Well, for pancreatic lipase,
Mm-hmm.
because that will be
I would say
in the duodenum or the stomach.
So, duodenum.
If I were to guess, like 4 to 6.
So 6, it's on the 6th side of things, yes. So it's going to be middling or alkaline. And so that's something that we can reason out because we don't want this to be burned, and that's why we're
And how
releasing
does it
bicarb.
How does it drop from 1 or 2 all the way up to 6 in that small little span
Right
distance.
there.
Okay, bicarb dumps in right there at the same,
Yep.
near the pyloric valve, or,
Your duodenum takes Tums right there.
okay.
Jacks it right up. And it goes out all in the same little spout, and so the enzymes are completely surrounded in bicarb at the beginning, and they're
So
protected
we'll
while
use the biliary duct or whatever for the same thing?
actually the pancreas and the common bile duct
Mhm.
join before they go to the duodenum.
Okay.
So, yep, they all get into a slurry and are all released together.
Yummy, alright.
Yep, delicious. Happens every time you eat, so hopefully it's appetizing. All right, next. All right, so that was all the part 1 kind of thing with the organs. Now let's get into a little bit of eraser. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. Everyone good?
Yep.
Hopefully so. Okay, good. All right. Now all these guys have been broken up. This is just a small intestine. All right. All of the guys have been broken up. We're done with the pancreas and da-da-da-da-da. So next we're going to go ahead and look at how do we get these pieces that we have created. These are cells that I'm drawing. So these are just the cells lining the small intestine. These cells would be called enterocytes because this is the enteric system. So enterocytes is just the scientific word for small intestine cells. Okay? So enterocytes. All right. Knowing that makes a lot of questions a lot easier. All right. So we have free fatty acids. They just came from the clipped off bits.
Okay.
We have mags. You don't need to memorize this. This should come from the previous stuff, but just so that we know what we're talking about. We also have cholesterol that we haven't really talked about very much. And cholesterol is often in ester form, where there's 2 of them put together, so it looks kind of like a barbell. That's the storage form, and when we eat stuff, most of the cholesterol we'll get from food is in the storage form, because it was stored and then we ate it, because they weren't using it at the time, because most of it's stored, just in any organism. So, yeah. Now, all of these things, we have, really quick, there's a reason I'm drawing all these out. All right, so we have short, medium, and I'll draw it right here, long free fatty acids. So it's literally just how big are they. Short and medium, we don't have a problem. They can be absorbed straight in. They're hydrophobic, and so they can go through the membranes happily. The long ones need some help. You don't need to know more about it than that they need some help. But yeah, so short and medium will be absorbed in. The other thing that we want to know is how do all these guys get gathered, and these guys might be absorbed via one of these as well. There's something called a Micell. That all of these guys will come together simply because they're all fats, and fats will kind of come together naturally. And a Micell is basically, if you have, I'm going to blow it up here, if you have a cell, kind of, and it's got hydrophilic bits on the outside, which come from bile salts, which is why bile salts work. And then you have all the fatty bits hiding on the inside. So bile salts have a hydrophilic side that is like charged, because water likes charges. And then the inside is completely non-charged or hydrophobic. And so the bile salts will show their charged side to the outside, their hydrophobic to the inside, just naturally. And then all these guys will, every time they touch a bile salt, they'll go to the safe side, basically. And that's how micelles are formed. So if you've ever, hopefully you've washed dishes. So if you've ever washed dishes, you notice how soap will naturally form bubbles. Same thing is going on. Okay? So this is just a soap bubble. And if you had any fats inside, you could watch the fat. Once it gets inside of a soap bubble, it will tend to stay in the soap bubble. Okay? So that's what a micell is. And it's slightly different. The reason I'm going into this in such detail is because we're going to talk about chylomicrons, and they look similar, and sometimes people can be like, well, they look the same, and they kind of, so we want to differentiate them so that they're very clear. Also, the charged versus non-charged thing, I don't remember. I don't know that she'd ask a question on that, actually. But if she does, you got it. All right, so those are micelles, made up of bile salts. Micelles is spelled probably like that. All right. Beautiferous. So all these guys will come into micelles, and micelles will be taken into enterocytes. Long-chain fatty acids will do something else. So, great. With that, I believe that there is a cholesterol esterase that will act on cholesterol esters as well. So there's one enzyme that I'm guessing comes from the pancreas, but I didn't see it linked anywhere, and I didn't take the time to look it up. And honestly, I doubt it would hurt you if you didn't remember it, but just to let you know, there's one enzyme for poor little cholesterol. All right. Okay. Now, basically everything can come together in micelles and be absorbed, right? So now let's talk about what happens if this stuff breaks. How do we see this break? Because that's why we're becoming doctors and stuff. So if we have broken fat, yeah, we'll just say fat broken. Broken, fat broken, because I feel like English is great today. All right. So we can have the gallbladder. Blocked. And I should say the duct is blocked. So that would be right here. You get that sucker blocked, or right here is probably more likely. Gallstones, exactly.
Or
How much?
cholecystectomy or whatever.
Yeah, cholelithiasis. So if we get that sucker blocked, we ain't getting no bile. We don't get bile.
We don't emulsify.
We don't emulsify. We don't emulsify. The enzymes work about as well as, you know, a pair of shoes that is, you know, two holes with lids. So in other words, there's no soles on your shoes. Yeah, when the joke's harder to understand than the science, it's a good day. So, yeah. So you would basically have a lot of fat that wasn't being absorbed because it would still be tags and dags, and that means you're not going to absorb it. Next, you can have the pancreas blocked, or the pancreas is damaged. There's various things that can do that. Some examples include cystic fibrosis. This particular one interferes with, it makes so that you have more mucus, there's less waving action to try and get stuff to move along the tube, ciliary movement, and I think some pumps are broken, some hydrogen pumps that help make things work in detail that you'll learn later in phys, I think. So basically, cystic fibrosis will break things that are necessary for the pancreas to get its stuff over here. So the transit doesn't work very well, and that ends up meaning that it gets plugged. You can also have something similar but different with alcohol. So if you have alcoholics. So same end result is you're going to have a whole bunch of DAGs, MAGs, and TAGs, and they're not going to be absorbed. So when they aren't absorbed, fat does something that you're going to see multiple times moving forward. This is actually kind of going to be a recurring concept that I did not catch the first 3 times it was talked about. And that is something, I don't know why I didn't catch it, but steatorrhea, meaning fat that isn't absorbed and it starts to kind of line your small intestine. And so if you're not absorbing fat, that means you're not going to get micelles, and you're not going to get any of the fat things. You're also not going to get fat-soluble vitamins. So you will be A, D, E, and K deficient. And that's something that will come up. more, and that's something that she might want to talk about. That one.
And the lining again, what was that called?
Steatorrhea.
Steatorrhea, okay.
Steatorrhea, something like that. All right. That's a no. Probably. Okay. Use my spelling at your own peril. All right.
And use the fat accumulates along the small intestines, right?
Yep. Because it's got liquid in the center, and so all the fat's going to try and get as far away from the liquid as possible, so it ends up lining the sides. Just chemically pushed to the sides. All right. So, with that, so both of these will result in steatorrhea is the point. And that means no fat-soluble vitamins is probably the one that you might see. Fat vitamins. And also no fats. The vitamins one is the one that tends to not always process, and so just hammer that one in because it's pretty important. Okay, so those are the two disease states, one for the gallbladder, one for the, well, two, I guess, for the pancreas. So basically it's plugged there or plugged there. Why? And then what does it do? Okay.
So steatorrhea is not a condition due to the gallbladder, but only the pancreas?
It's both.
It's both, okay.
And steatorrhea can even be caused by some other things, but those two are to do with the absorption in there. So, good deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a quick active recall on Micell. What the Micell is, it's got bile salts, it's got all the fatty stuff, including fat-soluble vitamins, which I should have said earlier, inside of it, and that is what gets into the enterocyte. Long-chain fatty acids don't. Then next, the two diseases and what they result in. So the gallbladder deal, pancreas deal. All right, ready? When you're ready, go ahead and go. We'll give it another 10, 15. All right. Any trouble spots? Any questions?
Is steatorrhea happening in the pancreas or in the intestines?
In the intestines. Good question.
And then go through the alcohol thing one more time.
If you're an alcoholic, it will jack up your pancreas, and if your pancreas isn't working, then fats will build up and cause steatorrhea. Exactly what it does to the pancreas is outside the scope for right now. And to be honest, I don't remember. I know what it does to the liver, but I don't know what it does to the pancreas.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
After the micelle is created or develops in the digestive tract,
Yeah.
makes its way into the enterocytes,
Yep.
and then does that become a chylomicron, or the?
Good question. The micelles are completely broken apart,
Okay.
and then you make an entirely new structure called a chylomicron in the enterocyte.
All right.
So, because you're going to use different stuff for the lining. Good question. All right.
Damn, this is a good question.
So this is where I would kind of say digestion and absorption has basically ended. Moving forward, it is inside the body transport, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and erase our diseases right now. I'm going to erase this at least. These guys can go away. That'll be a space. Excuse me. All right, and goodbye. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and all right. Oh, right, we need green first. Okay, so in the enterocytes, I'm going to go ahead and draw a bigger enterocyte, actually. So in the enterocytes, so this is just another enterocyte, we are going to make a chylomicron. So, the chylomicron is going to have all of those dietary fats stuffed inside of it. So, it's going to have, what did the micelle have?
Cholesterol, ester.
Cholesterol, good. Esters. Mags, and that's one thing where we're now changing it. So good, and that's what I was hoping you would say. Now, so in the body, we usually, the tag form is what we're looking for. We had to break it to the mag form just so that it could absorb easily, because the tags just have an issue for whatever reason. So we break it down, and then we actually are going to build it back up right here in the enterocyte. And so they have become tags again. The enterocyte made these suckers out of the mags and the free fatty acids. There are still going to be free fatty acids as well, though. Okay? There's one last thing that is going to be part of this, and that is a protein. And this was made by the enterocyte. This protein is kind of an identifier. And this is called ApoB100.
I thought it was 48.
I thought it was 48 too.
You are right. It is 48 first.
And then APO2, and then B.
Not yet. Not yet.
It's not there yet? It's
Nope.
Okay. You know more than me.
Good deal. Those apoproteins, those are good questions.
Okay.
So, yeah, sweet. Good catch. So, ApoB48, and that is the identifier so that when this is going to be then released into the lymph, not the blood, because it's too frickin' huge to stick into the capillaries, so it goes into the lymph. And in our class, someone asked, why does it go into the lymph instead of the capillaries? And then we went on this whole round robin for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The best answer we found on any scientific site was it's just too big.
Mm-hmm.
So, goes to the lymph, and a lymph vessel is called a lacteal, the end bit. Lacteal is the, here I'll make it rounded off, so it's a lacteal. Now it's a lacteal. So the end bit right here goes into a lacteal. If you see that word, that's what it's talking about. It's just the lymph. Cool?
Okay.
Okay. Goes to the lymph. Lymph goes and drains into the blood at the
Thoracic duct.
yeah, thoracic duct up to the subclavian vein. And then we're going to go ahead and have it dumped into the blood. So we get to go into the blood. All right. Subclav. Okay, and now we get to why it needs the ApoB48. So, it is in the blood, and this is a chylomicron, and the ApoB48 is how the HDL, which is another lipoprotein, can identify it. HDL. And the HDL is going to give it the rest of its proteins. The HDL will give it ApoE2 and ApoC. let's see, it's either,
Yeah, C2.
C2, and then it might just be E without a number. Alright, ApoE and ApoC2. Alright, and then the chylomicron has 3 proteins that we care about. ApoB48, ApoE, ApoC2. Now, B48, we already know that's the identifier. ApoE. In my mind, E stands for hello, because it is the one that's going to go up, and when it sees a cell, the cell is going to have a little docking port. So a little receptor. What hooks to that receptor? That is ApoE. Okay, so it's the one that lets it bind. ApoC2 is going to go ahead and poke the cell and say, hey, take some of the stuff that I'm carrying. And so C stands for cut, because it actually snips it off. Okay? So it doesn't actually stand for cut, but it does today. So that's going to activate lipoprotein, because that's what this is. It's a lipoprotein. Lipase, because it's going to be a lipid being cut. So lipoprotein lipase. Okay? And this is going to be activated by C2. And this enzyme is inside the body cell, whatever cell in the body it is, anywhere.
In the blood?
It's next to the blood. So the blood goes to all the cells of the body,
Okay.
and this will go ahead and meet up with them. The chylomicron is going to bump into it, and with the apoproteins that HDL gave it, it is now able to connect and then say, hey, go ahead and cut some stuff off. And any cells that need stuff will have their receptors out. Any cells that don't need stuff will cover their receptors. And so that's how it can tell which one it's going to go to. All right. Chylomicron does a whole bunch of deliveries until it's run out of stuff, or at least a lot of stuff. And then it will make its way to the liver, which everything in biochemistry seems to do at some point. Yeah. All right, that's the liver. All right, and the chylomicron remnant is what we call it when it's run out. So this one was chylomicron. And now over here we have a much smaller chylomicron remnant. And that goes into the liver. And the liver will take all the remaining pieces and it will go ahead and use them to make whatever the liver needs to make. Some of which will be more lipoproteins, which we're going to hit in just a second. But first, let's go over chylomicron, HDL transfer, meeting with the cell, and then going into the liver. Okay?
Does it give away doesn't it give it back?
Oh, you were right. HDL comes and collects the apoproteins from chylomicron so it can give them to the next
In the
one.
liver or before it hits the liver?
Before.
Okay.
So HDL will come and catch chylomicron remnants. So we'll have another.
So chylomicron is the least
HDL.
dense, and then VLDL, HDL, and LDL? Or is VLDL somewhere else in there?
VLDL is correct. HDL is the one you want to put at the end.
Yeah, okay.
In the name, VLDL, very low density
Would be the
lipoprotein.
second one.
And then HDL, skipping over the other ones, HDL is high density.
Okay.
So it's right in the name, it's nice.
Low density. All right, cool.
So,
I don't know if that'll be a question or is it a good question?
actually, that's one that I have a feeling will be in there. So, yeah, this is the HDL recollecting. HDL recollects E
Ooh, that looks like my
and
pencil.
C2.
Oh no.
All right. Let's go ahead and do quick recall. Enterocyte, HDL meeting, cell meeting, back to the liver with another HDL meeting.
Breaks it down and recycles it.
Yep. Any questions before we start? Okay, have at it. Remember to name the proteins. Give it another 15. Okay. How'd it go? Any questions, problem spots?
How does it get the B48? Okay, the chylomicron gets the B48. Where does it get it from?
From the enterocyte.
From the
So the enterocyte has packed it all together and given it its first protein.
Okay.
And that's so that the HDL can find it, because otherwise it's just a glob floating through the bloodstream.
Okay.
So the first protein is B48.
Exactly. And I don't know if this worked for you guys, but you know, like C3PO, R2D2, that's like, those are names, of course. So ApoB48, that's the one that sounds like a name to me. C2 and E just sound like letters. Works for me. So, question for you guys. What does ApoE do? Exactly, it binds to the receptor. Hello!
That's what I remember when I was.
Has anyone seen Labyrinth? Just as an aside, Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just say hello? No, I said hello, but that's close enough. All right. Good days. Good days. All right. So what does C2
It cuts it
do?
off.
Cuts the
something.
triglyceride.
I don't know who it
Yes.
cuts off.
So it tells something else to cut it.
Lipoprotein
Yes.
lipase.
Lipoprotein lipase. And question for you: where is the lipoprotein lipase? In the chylomicron or in the cell of the body?
In
The cell.
In the cell of the body. So it's always in the cell. It just has to be turned on by the chylomicron saying you have permission. C2.
So C2 tells lipoprotein lipase to, wait, say it over again.
So
To cut off the chylomicron?
Yep, cut off what you need. Cool. So you have the binder, and then you have the go ahead and take some. Hello, and cut. Cool. All right. Any other questions? All right, good deal. So, moving forward. Oh, and the densities that we touched on. The cool thing we're doing is we are going from very lowest density to highest density. So we're going in order.
Okay.
The body goes in order. Basically, the more fat you have, if you've ever had like, fatty soup, the fat always rises to the top. Fat is a very low density. The more fat you have, the less density you have in this case. If they ask which one has high fat, then that's the same thing as saying which one has really low density.
Cool.
All right. So, whichever way they phrase it, you got it. I would just memorize it one way and not memorize it both because then it gets all crossed in your head. But you do you.
More fat is low density.
Right, because fat is very low density. It floats on top of water because it is a lower density molecule. Alrighty, so are we good to continue or do we want a break? Good to continue. Okay. Alright. With chylomicrons going into the liver, yeah, they get broken apart and everything. Then the liver is going to go ahead and whenever needed or whenever it has a whole bunch of stuff, it will go ahead and we're going to go ahead and have that go into the liver and we're going to have this come out of the liver. Alright. It will go out. So I'm just going to make it a loop because we're going to be showing a loop. The liver. The liver is able to make VLDL. Alright, and VLDL is just another lipoprotein. This particular lipoprotein is going to be, it'll have cholesterol, triacylglycerols, free fatty acids, a lot of the same things, but it'll have some proteins as well. And one of the proteins that it has is going to be it's going to have E, because it has to bind to things. It's going to have C2, because it has to have things cut stuff off. And then it's going to have B100. Alright, so those are the apoproteins of VLDL, which I guess I already labeled over there, whatever. Okay, nice thing about VLDL, and she probably mentioned and told you not to bother remembering IDL. Did she even say anything?
Not really.
Okay.
I think it's on there.
It is on the slides, and that's why I'm going to say it. You don't need to remember it.
Yeah, it's on the slides, but she said we weren't really going to use it. We just have to be familiar.
Because otherwise it's like, what the heck is that thing? Exactly. IDL. All right, so VLDL is going to make some deliveries. VLDL still. VLDL will make some deliveries. I'm just showing some cells, and it goes, and it drops some stuff off, it drops some stuff off, and now it's dropped off enough stuff that its density has changed. It's lost enough fat. So now we call it intermediate density lipoprotein, IDL. IDL does nothing special. It has nothing different. It's just a name for a half-empty VLDL. Okay? All right, so it's going to keep going, and it's going to keep making deliveries to the cells. Fresh fish, get your fresh fish. All right. Delivers a whole bunch of stuff, which is not fish. And omegas would be delivered this way, though. So there you go. And eventually it will become LDL, low-density lipoprotein. And LDL has a bunch of cholesterol, and it's going to start emphasizing delivery of cholesterol. So cholesterol has been in there the whole time, but now it's switching jobs to delivery of cholesterol. And that is why it is often referred to as the bad lipoprotein, the bad fat, LDL. Ooh, feeble. It's because it's depositing cholesterol. And that's good as long as it doesn't do it too much. So if it does it too much, then that's bad. So it's going to go ahead and deposit at each of the cells. And and eventually it will go back into the liver to be recycled. Then the liver is going to go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and erase this stuff over here so that I got a little bit of room since I made my circle right there. All right. Very well. We still got a micron up there. All right. Going to make a second loop. This is just to show the HDL. It's going through the same blood. Goes through the entire body. We are now going to do HDL. I make a better door than window. All right. So HDL is going to go and do the reverse. And his apoprotein list is going to be A1, C2, and E. And he's going to go through and he is going to go and pick up cholesterol from all the cells that are like, we got enough of this stuff, please take it away. And so it'll go and pick it up, and it'll go and pick it up, and it'll go and pick it up. And when it is picking it up, something important about HDL is an enzyme it has that is required for it to be able to pick up cholesterol. Because it will pick it up, But before it takes it inside, it has to pick up one piece and pick up another and put them together into a cholesterol ester. So not single cholesterol units, a cholesterol ester. And the enzyme that lets it do that is called LCAT. LCAT.
I do not remember that. Do you remember that?
Yep. LCAT and ACAT.
Yep, LCAT and ACAT. So ACAT is actually the one that's inside the cell, and so I actually will draw that over here. When cholesterol is being delivered, ACAT is the one that lets the cell take it and store it. So ACAT is inside cells and will make a cholesterol ester. That's why it sounds so similar, is because it's doing the same job, just a different place. Okay?
Yeah.
One of them does it inside the HDL, one of them does it inside the cell. All right, so one way that you might be able to say la vie. Yeah. I was trying to see if there's an easy way to remember it. I feel like I had something, but it's not coming to me. So, but LCAT is in the HDL. Oh, here's what I did. Okay, so I'm going to draw the HDL right here. And we have LCAT inside there. Below we have the cell. And we have ACAT written in blue because the cell is blue. ACAT in there. The way that I think of it is I always see these two on top of each other. I was doing it earlier this morning actually, so it stuck. And I just think of la, like la 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 la. And it's just the top one starts with L, the bottom one starts with A. And it works for me. Hopefully it'll work for you. It's a little bit weird, but maybe that's what makes it good.
Definitely.
All right. So cholesterol acetyltransferase is what I think the CAT stands for. I don't know what the L and the A stand for. All right, so cholesterol will go around picking up a whole bunch of stuff. It also will give lipoproteins as needed, and then it will come back to the liver and give all the stuff back to the liver. Question for you guys. I didn't say this earlier, so bonus points. What does the liver do with cholesterol and a bunch of other stuff, but we'll say cholesterol? What is one of the things that it makes?
Vitamin D3.
Excellent. That's beautiful. That is, so vitamin D is definitely true. There are two other things. Actually, that is one of them. So hormones. Excellent. That's one of the major things that will be made out of cholesterol. The other one we talked about earlier. Bile. Bile actually uses cholesterol as a building block. So the liver will make bile out of cholesterol, bringing us a nice full circle story here. Okay? And incidentally, just to finish the story of bile, just paging off for a sec, while all the absorption is going on, bile is being reabsorbed too, and so we keep recycling cholesterol. We're really, really bad at letting go of cholesterol because we didn't historically have an issue of too much cholesterol. And so we're really good at recycling it. And the only way to keep, well, I shouldn't say the only, a predominant way of letting bile not be reabsorbed is to eat fiber. Because fiber will hold on to bile and just about anything, and then it will go out with your stool, lowering your cholesterol and other things. So fiber is helpful for that.
Fiber.
Yep, fiber pills. Or, you know, have you guys seen in the garden it's kind of a weed. Maybe some of you know what plantain is, but so yeah, it's kind of, they're really big. They look sort of like that, and then the veins go like this, straight down the leaf. Well, if you look at the little, if you look at the stalk coming off of the plantain right now, it's actually got a lot of little, looks like seeds coming off of it. Those are actually where we get a lot of our fiber supplements. We take plantain stalks, they're called psyllium husk when they're bottled. Psyllium husk comes from plantain, so just super cool. So there's your fiber.
Nice.
Blew my mind. All right. Okay, so fun little deviation. All right, so what have we talked about? We talked about the LDL family, is what I like to call VLDL, IDL, and LDL. So the LDL family, because they basically all do the same thing, just kind of shifting as they get to LDL more towards cholesterol, whatever. And then HDL. So LDL family and HDL, if you can go through those, then the only thing left is a couple diseases of when some stuff breaks, and then we'll be through the whole thing. Okay. So when you're ready, go ahead and do active recall on the LDL family and HDL. What apoproteins do they have? What is their job? And then what are important enzymes for HDL? Take another 15, 20. All right. So, what questions or clarifications or any trouble spots do we have?
So when it LDL goes back in, it comes out as HDL?
The liver completely breaks apart and makes HDL just whenever it needs it. So they're separate, but yeah, good question. Good to clarify it.
Does HDL get A1 from the liver or from being in the liver?
Yeah, all the apoproteins on HDL are made in the liver and given to HDL.
Okay. Then when does IDL become LDL? What happens?
It's so just like VLDL becoming IDL just because it has been long enough that it's given enough away.
Okay.
Same thing, IDL to LDL. It's just its composition, it's given enough away of certain things that it naturally now will give cholesterol away more often because that's pretty much all it's got left.
So, okay, so LDL is just cholesterol, and
it's always a gray area, but cholesterol is the main job because that's mainly what's left. It's not 0% fats.
Yeah.
So,
it still has the ApoE though.
Yep.
To go into the liver. Okay.
The ApoE is going to let it bind to cells, and so if it didn't have that, it couldn't do any work.
Okay.
So here's a good question: which LDL has ApoE? There's a fast answer.
LDL.
All of them.
Oh, because they have to bind.
Yep. Otherwise, they're freaking useless. So, ApoE and ApoC are on all of them. So just memorize the other ones. There's one for each of them that is unique. All the rest of them are just CE, 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 CE. It just goes B48, B100, A1. Ta-da. A1 steak sauce.
And C2 are on
A1 steak sauce.
Yep. E and C2 are on everything. And yeah, HDL included.
E and C2
And-
and everything, and
So the first one will be B48, and
Yep.
then this just has EC2, and the next one will have EC2 and B100.
Where was the one that only had E and C2?
The one at the top, is that the only?
HDL.
The chylomicron has 3. So it's got the identifier B48.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I guess
But
I
does
did
it get that
erase
from
them.
HDL though?
The B48 is the one it gets from its creator.
Enteros or the
Enterocyte, exactly.
Enterocyte.
Okay.
So the identifier proteins are
Which
the
is-
ones that always come from where it was made, and then the other ones come from.
brings up another thing,
HDL.
endogenous and
Exogenous.
You're jumping my question. Awesome.
okay, so
I had like 3 questions at the end that I want to make sure we hit, and that's one of them. So, endogenous versus exogenous.
endogenous is taking it in orally.
From the outside.
From
So-
dietary.
Vice
No,
versa.
and endogenous is
exogenous
inside the body.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
so-
Exogenous is
from the
dietary
outside.
Endo is
intake.
in, exo is out.
Exactly. So exo means it came from outside. So that's food that we enjoy eating, whether or not it is good for us. So, and then endogenous is stuff that we made internally, just as you guys said. So here's a more direct question that probably, this is one that I think I've heard being a question before. Does VLDL carry endogenous or exogenous lipids?
Endogenous. Yeah.
Endogenous, yes. What does the chylomicron carry?
Exogenous.
What does a micelle carry?
Exogenous.
Awesome. And last question, is a micelle, well, I'm not going to promise my last question. Turn of phrase, ignore me. So, is a micelle a lipoprotein? Think about it.
I think it's made of them, yeah.
It's got fatty acids.
So, it looks so much alike that is a reasonable
Oh.
assumption, but they are different
The
because
biosol.
the protein part of lipoprotein, so the identifier bits on it and all that kind of stuff, those are only on the ones in the blood. The micelle doesn't get any proteins. It is literally a semi-organized bile salt rounded glob of fat, basically, that is
Okay.
taken into the
So no lipoproteins. just-
no proteins, therefore it is not a lipoprotein. Lipoprotein is only chylomicron forward.
Okay.
My cells are just fatty crap.
Yep.
Alright.
You can make them in a pot if you want. Just throw some fat, some soap, got some micelles. And you do see micelles in some other literature that has nothing to do with humans, but lipoproteins, mammals anyway. Lipoproteins are the ones that we have in the blood.
Cool.
All right, good deal. Let's couple more questions, and then I'll hit a couple diseases, and then we'll have the whole thing done. So, since we're on a roll with questions, now, without looking at the board or any of your notes, what does CCK do?
Stimulates the bile to release.
Excellent, gallbladder. So, and now, don't say it out loud so everyone has a chance to answer in their heads, then we'll say it out loud. What is the hormone of the pancreas? Don't say it yet. Go ahead and think it. Go ahead. Secretin.
Oh, I said it.
Close enough. If you start with the right 3 letters, then you're going to get it.
Okay.
Awesome. So, secretin, it helps the pancreas secrete, and I think they actually named it that way.
And then side note, CCK is from the Vegas. That's what we learned.
Nice.
Physiology.
Vagus is what stimulates CCK release. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Crossover! Ugh. Dang, you just walk up there and be like, give me now. Alright. Let's see. Another quiz question. Answer in your heads first, then we'll answer outside. That way everyone gets a chance. With the pancreas being jacked up. What could make so the pancreas was jacked up and not doing its job? There are a couple diseases we talked about. And then what would that lead to? Two-parter. Okay, first, what is at least one disease?
Cystic fibrosis.
Cystic fibrosis. The other one is just alcoholism.
Yep, ETOH.
Yep. So that's something that can jack the pancreas up. Cystic fibrosis or alcoholism. And then, say it in your heads, then we'll say it out loud just so everyone gets a chance. What would it lead to if you had either gallstones or the pancreas being jacked up? Either one, it would lead to a condition. 3, 2, 1. Steatorrhea, which is going to make so we don't absorb fat. It just builds up on the sides.
Sludgy.
Exactly. Sludgy system, and we get no, very few fatty vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins. So A, D, E, and K, you don't get those, and then you start having you have those vitamin deficiency symptoms on top of everything else. And it's like, oh, you need to eat more. That won't fix it. You need to fix the problem. So, all right. Cool deal.
So people who have their colon pulled, do they have to take extra vitamins or anything like that, or can we even absorb them if they take them?
They can absorb them, to my knowledge,
Okay.
at my level. They can absorb them because there is always being bile released. It's just not a lot. And so you have a constant stream of a modest amount of
So
bile.
even if you have your colon pulled out, your gallbladder pulled out, totally,
You will
where's
get
the
bile.
coming from?
It's straight from the liver. So when they take the gallbladder out, they go ahead and just let the duct go
Straight into the.
straight down.
Okay.
So the liver makes it, and every time, whenever the moment it is made, it is dropped into the duodenum.
Okay.
And so when you eat, if you eat a little bit, you're fine. You're like totally prepped up for it. If you eat a lot, you can't handle it because you only have that amount
No
at a
reservoir.
time.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Cool.
Okay. Diseases of lipoprotein stuff. All right. So we have. Okay. We have 3 HDL diseases, which are really simple. It's just which part is broken. And then we have 1 LDL, and then we have 1 enterocyte is broken. Because I think it's the receptor. All right. HDL. I'm just going to draw us a little HDL here. Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. That's an HDL. So you can have the enzyme. Which enzyme, without looking at the board, which cat does HDL have? Is it LCAT or ACAT?
LCAT.
La, 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 la. All right, LCAT.
Good job, girls. Dang.
Nice. So if LCAT is broken, then we have familial LCAT deficiency. Double check the names on these ones because I always butcher the names of these particular diseases and I recognize them when I see it. So familial LCAT deficiency or something thereabouts. Okay? Basically, if you can't do that, you can't pick up cholesterol, and so you're going to have a whole bunch of cholesterol end up in the blood because the cells can't, give it to the guy who's supposed to take it away. So you're going to have a buildup of cholesterol. The other thing is you can have the HDL receptor broken, and that one has a name. Oh, was that the tangerine one? There's Tangeres. I think it was Tangeres disease, and that's the one, I think, tangerine, because if you look at their tonsils, they're orange. And that's Tangeres disease, and I think that's the one that has the receptor broken. So, yeah. The last one is when the entire HDL is just not being formed super great. And that's like familial HDL deficiency instead of LCAT deficiency. So you have 2 familial ones, deficiency of the whole thing, HDL, or deficiency of the LCAT. Double check on these particular diseases again, just because.
You said LCAT deficiency was what?
Familial LCAT deficiency leads to high cholesterol in the blood. And really, that's kind of what all of these diseases do. So just one way or another, you break the way to handle cholesterol, either to collect it, or this next one, familial LDL deficiency, to deposit it properly, and so it never gets put into the cells, and so, or rather, I should say, the LDL stays out forever, or until it completely empties all of its cholesterol, which it's not supposed to do. It's supposed to go around with some and then go back to the liver, and it has enough just in case every cell along the path needs to stick their receptor out, which isn't usually how it is. This is me rationalizing, not a textbook, but they apparently get more cholesterol than they have to have in a normal situation, just in case. And in familial LDL issues, then the LDL stays out until it delivers all of it, and it just never comes back, and that's because of a receptor to the liver issue. So there's one, and then the last one is the enterocytes having ACAT broken. It's like familial ACAT deficiency or something like that. Entero. So these are kind of, the HDL has 3, LDL has 1, and entero has 1. Those are the ideas of the diseases. Again, look up the names, but you can see that all of these would lead to cholesterol being mishandled and therefore being high in the blood and therefore causing issues, because it would build up in places and make us have atherosclerotic plaque and such. And then those can become clots.
What's the enterocyte disease? Is it
Oh, I said enterocyte. I'm a liar. Body cell, just somatic cell. Body cell, somatic. Somatic just means anywhere except for the ovaries or the sperm. So somatic just means whole body, whatever. So it's any kind of cell you can imagine. It could be a cell of, it could be a fat cell, it could be a brain cell.
Wherever the veins are taking it, or the arteries and capillaries.
Exactly.
And that's an ACAT deficiency.
Yep. All right, and the LDL one, really quick, has the most pronounced symptoms besides the tangeries with the orange tonsils. The LDL has where you see those xanthomas, so polyps around the eyes, and it looks bumpy, and it's really noticeable. And then the feet, you just have these buildups of cholesterol just wherever it can get stuffed, and it just makes this deformed. The LDL, familial LDL something or another deficiency, but it's familial LDL something. And that's the one where you get the visible buildup of cholesterol because it's just being packed wherever. All right, that is lipid digestion, absorption, and distribution. Good times.
Man, that was more than I thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of little details snuck in there. Okay, so, yep. When you're going through it, it helps to break it into small pieces. First we had the preparation, the 3 steps to prep. Then we had the actual breakdown with the pancreas. Then we had the cellular uptake with the micelles. Then we had the lipoprotein stories, chylomicron, LDL family, HDL. Then we had a couple disease panels and we're done. So just...
And that so it's going to go chylomicron, VLDL, IDL, LDL, HDL.
Yes. Awesome.
Can you say the steps again, the 3 steps to break?
Okay, so you have the first 3 steps to prepare. So it's like the digestion preparation steps.
Okay.
2 of them are the lipase guys, and the 3rd one's the gallbladder. The next big chunk is the pancreas and its whole job. And the absorption. Then once you got the absorption done, all that, your next one is chylomicron, then LDL family, then HDL family. And all 3 of those you can just call lipoprotein stories. So we have the digestion absorption story, and then we have the lipoprotein story. And there's 3 pieces in each of them. And kind of having a structure really helps keep it straight in your head. Or at least it does for me. So, all right. I think that's it. Unless we have any questions or.
So digestion is the basically the micelle and the enterocyte part.
Yep.
And then absorption is when it becomes a chylomicron and all that.
So
stuff.
digestion is the breaking up. Sorry, I misunderstood your question for a moment. Digestion is the breaking part, and then absorption would be micelle going inside. It's the part where it actually crosses a barrier. That's the absorption bit. So this whole thing is digestion and absorption, because absorption is like a tiny part. Then the next part is lipoprotein stuff. Chylo, LDL family, HDL.
Okay.
And then you can throw the diseases at the end of each story, each like major story. This whole thing, diseases. That whole thing, diseases.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's it. So there's the story. Good times. Chylomicrons were like, I had a professor in undergrad who had this beautiful picture. It turned out he made it, and I can't get it. It was just great. It did this whole thing in one picture. It was gorgeous. Had everything, and it was clear. Anyway, hopefully you can find some love for chylomicrons. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.